this evening. Welcome everyone to our January 17th, 2023 Stanley White Recreation Center Advisory Committee meeting. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday and Happy New Year. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Bernard White to do the prayer for us.
No problem at all. Y'all please stand. Our Father, which art in heaven, Heavenly Father, we thank you for everything we have received. Heavenly Father, I ask you to watch over the meeting tonight, Lord. Protect us, guide us. Let us be diligent in what we do tonight. Heavenly Father, let the road be smooth for us. Bless our families. Continue to watch over, keep the blood flowing in our veins. Heavenly Father, we thank you for everything we have received in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
If y'all want to remain standing, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance at this time.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ginger, can you do the roll call, please?
Leander Morgan.
Present.
Talina Massey. James Woods.
Present.
Curtis Stewart. He's here. Bernard White.
Here.
Reginald Pender.
Here.
Elijah Brown.
Here.
Barbara Lee. Alderman Royal.
All right. So, just want to start off by looking at the minutes. I think Ginger sent these out to everyone for review via email, and you have a copy in front of you. If anybody has any objection, or if we can approve the minutes.
I'd like to make the motion that we accept it.
Second.
And all in favor say aye.
I have a question.
Okay.
The design itself, is that, it says 80% complete? Do you have that design?
I do not. It has not been released yet until it goes out for bid.
Okay. And I don't know if some of my questions are gonna be on number 6, but I was going back and just reading some documents that we've had put out since we've been meeting, and I'm just a little confused on a couple of things just based off of the last meeting that we had. So I don't feel comfortable. Well, yeah. So there's some questions I have in regards to where we're at with the design. And again, I don't know if that's one of the issues I think is, and I don't know if this is a conference, the meeting seemed a little bit too scattered for me. And it seems to be some things that are taking place that we're not necessarily coming back together quick enough in regards to discuss that, if that makes sense.
Okay, we can talk about that under the update on design and development if you'd like.
Okay.
But you do not want to approve the minutes
Well,
as stated?
some of this is things that we talked about in the last meeting, but again, some of these things, yeah. There's a motion on the floor, so I'm sorry.
Well, I should have said what necessary changes in case we want to make changes in this meeting. And if I'm listening, if I may cut in on you, what Mr. Curtis is talking about is that I think we meet like quarterly. I've never been for quarterly meetings. When we meet quarterly, that means we meet now, then another month go by, We need to be updated. We need to be, if we had to meet once a month, we need to be abreast of what's really going on.
Well, my plan going forward with the new year is to have one every month. That's what I was planning to do once I became director. You know, I was interim before, so now I'm planning to have one going forward every month.
Gotcha. And Carrie, again, I know you're in a transition period, although you've been doing the work and the role. But when you go back through the documents, and I just kind of, because things are coming to more fruition here lately, time is moving, it's about time to break ground on this project, et cetera. The documents and then what's taking place is not necessarily the way that, there's some things that had already been discussed and approved, et cetera. And then when I look at these minutes, it's saying that 80% of it, the document, 80% of the construction documents are drafted. But then when we go back and we start looking at the public input meetings that we've had, we go back and start looking at different emails that's come, the agreement between CP and CPL and the city, et cetera. It just kind of seems like even with the changes that have occurred, the design, it seems like some things are already there, but I don't know why we may not necessarily have the information, if that makes sense. Because when I look at this and then I go back and look at something from 2021 or the last public meeting, it's not matching up to the last conversation that we had, if that makes sense, the last meeting we had.
So when you had the public input, those were concept plans. When I say construction plans, those are the plans and documents that are ready to go out for bid. So they're more detailed, they're the architectural plans.
Right. And so just, and I guess again, and I don't want to rewind too much, but again, some of this is a little blurred because it's been so long since we've met, and then I know there's been some changes. So originally there was just a design bid, and then there was an architecture bid. That changed. Can you refresh us on why that changed within the city? Why they wound up sending out the whole design with plan set for versus the architectural plan, which essentially broke that up from a contractor being able to design and build it to where you went to just CP&L designing it, but they had already pretty much designed it prior to. But can you explain that to the committee so people understand what took place there, just so we're on the same page?
So I want to understand what you're asking me.
Okay.
So initially it was design, bid, build.
Correct.
And then it just went to design, bid.
Correct. Right, so it broke up where CPL was now the architect, and you guys are gonna put it out for a bid for the contractor to build it, right? But I guess what I'm saying is based on it's a couple of different questions I'm asking in regards to that. One is based on the public input, the meetings that we had where folks took the square footage and they put it on the board, they designed the rooms, then we came back. There's been a couple of different phases to that. Then there's some documents that show the physical structure of the building. There isn't a design that I have that we all privy to. So what I'm trying to understand now is, it seems as though based on the information that we have, that is already done. But then I'm reading here per our last meeting, it's 80% of the construction documents are being developed, et cetera. But it seems like a lot of those decisions had already been made through the design of that building has already been completed, is what I'm getting to.
Right, and when we say design and construction documents, that includes permits.
I understand.
That's not just the design of the building.
So at this point, and that's why I'm saying it's hard for me to understand these minutes and why we did this last time. And again, it's been some time ago since we met back in October. It's not making sense to me when I go pull all the documents from 2020, April 15th, when we started these all the information leading up to here, why we're at this place here, if that makes sense. Yes.
Let me ask a question, Curtis, and this may shed a little bit of light on it. The design plans that were submitted, were they one of the designs that CP&L had previously had at one of their other sites? Is that what was sent in and adopted for the Stanley White site?
No, the one they had done for us is the one that was submitted.
Okay, so this is not anything, because they submitted, I think, 7 to 9 different designs that they had previously been a part of, projects.
Are you talking about the history wall or the actual building?
I'm talking about the actual building.
The actual building.
Yeah, they submitted 7 to 9 different designs that they had as projects in
They
the
brought
past.
us 7 to 10 different designs on a document saying, hey, here are concepts.
Right.
That you guys could potentially.
So we never did submit, or we never did. One of those 7 to 10 designs is not what was sent in for the property that Stanley White's gonna be sitting on.
I can't speak to that because I wasn't involved in that meeting, but I know the design is the one they brought before the board and was approved on to submit for
Right, and
construction.
I think we have a picture of that design, because I remember the door, there was a conversation about the door being on the street of Third Avenue and not necessarily on coming down, Broad Street. And so, do you have a picture of that actual building? that
This
structure?
is the most recent I
Yeah,
have.
that's it there.
This is what I have that is the most recent.
Well, let me throw something in here I think that might help. Okay, so when we first, going back to what Curtis is saying, everything led up to a concept that we did when we were over at West New Bern and we had the little squares, we put them in, and the input from the community, all that was about a concept of what we wanted Stanley White to look like. So that concept plan was brought to us as a board and the Board of Aldermen to be bidded out to see if it could be done. So when you said we went from, what was it? You mentioned it because we changed it. The plan went out. No one met the plan that they could do. No one could do what was asked to be done. So it came back to where now CP&L is designing the building for a contractor to bid on the design. Before it was design, build. Design, bid, build. No one met the criteria to do that.
Well, I think what I recall, we couldn't do it that way because of statutes.
That's right. So just to be clear on my question and where we're at now, we can't necessarily change certain things at this point, but when you look at this literature and you look at what's been put out to the public, it says, we have a document here that says decisions. Decisions will be made by this committee and the Board of Aldermen. And so I'm saying that to say that, and I'll show it to you if you like, and you can have, and I'm sure you have it. I guess my point is, moving forward, there has to be a little bit more conversation, because you already have a structure of what, and it's changed from what we had originally, right? And that's fine, but I don't think anybody here has it.
How has it changed?
Well,
Did
just
you talking
based on
about
what
this
you-
design?
Yeah, based on the design. And so I'm just saying, because the committee was put together for us to be involved in that complete process. And I'm
Right.
saying that we haven't been involved in that complete process because the structure that you have on that other page there versus structure there, there's two different structures that the concepts that we had. So that's the concept that I've seen and that everybody's seen. But that's the new concept. What I'm saying is, these are conversations that we need to be involved in. And I'm not a politically correct guy. Whether you guys are gonna do what you wanna do or not, we should still be at the conversation, because through this process, you got, information where people have said, these are the rooms we want in this building, these are the things that we wanna have going on. If you guys are already starting the design, you have the concept now, you have the official concept, because again, I'm imagining the bidding process is about to take place or has already started. So if we're gonna be, a voice for our community, and you guys are putting us in that position, and we need to be that moving forward, because if things don't take place the way that people are expecting it based off of how the input that they've given you, and we don't know how that looks, I don't think that's gonna be fair. I'm not even just talking about, I'm not necessarily talking about from a structural standpoint, I'm talking about from a program standpoint, I'm talking about an interior standpoint, I'm talking about a design standpoint, and then ultimately I'm talking about a program standpoint, because if you look at the information that we have here, that's what it's saying that this was put together for. And I don't think we can effectively do that by meeting once a quarter, forgetting all the stuff that's taking place. Again, there's been a lot. You're coming in officially now, as the title holder for Parks and Rec, et cetera. And I know some of these things aren't things you're able to change, but I just want to be clear on my stance, because when I look at this information here, and I don't know how many people on the committee has kept track of the documents that you guys have given us, the meetings that we've had since 2020, but a lot of it's not necessarily consistent. Things are changing, but we need to be involved in those changes. At least at the table for the conversation.
Yeah, to make recommendations. Well, and like, the most I've been involved is like with the outside design. Like, I haven't really been involved with the inside and the layout and everything, but nothing has changed from the original design other than like colors.
So what's the square footage of the building?
It's about 36,000.
I think the original was 26, right?
I'm not.
37,000 was the original.
Okay.
It was somewhere in the 30, it was supposed to be double what we already had,
Which was
which was 18,000 at Stanley White. The old Stanley White was 18,000, so it was supposed to have been double that.
So it's 36,000.
36,000 square feet, which is supposed to have been upstairs and downstairs, 2 gyms, a walking track upstairs, plus.
And that's my next question. Would you mind, and if this is out of order, I definitely would take your advice to move on, and maybe you're gonna cover it in the updates, design, and development, but can you tell us how many rooms, what the layout of that building is?
I can tell you what I have here.
Okay.
And so, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have 17 rooms listed here. Ones that were included in the original building, which was 1975, were an exercise room, 1 gym, a kiln room that used to be there, but they did away with that, a kitchen, laundry, locker rooms, multi-purpose room, office, reception, restrooms, and storage.
That's what was in the previous building.
Yes.
So for the purposes of time, are we not privy to that document?
Yeah.
Okay, can someone send that to the people that are on this committee?
I
So
thought we
that
had
have-
seen it, but I'll make sure it gets sent again.
Yeah, I would think that if that is the latest document that you guys are working off of, that's where we're at now. I would think that based on how this union, this committee's formed, that we should definitely have that information. But, and that'll answer the question, so you don't have to go over what those 17 rooms are. But to what Mr.
Woods.
Woods was saying, is it still the 2 gyms, is it still what that concept was that based on that prior structure, is that kind of still the layout, because it was, okay.
It's the very same layout. It's 2 gyms with an elevated walking track. All of the rooms that have been identified, and because this, the Stanley White is previously received a grant, we're required to maintain and provide the same amount of rooms and everything that was previously used there.
Understood. And then the next question I have is
But it doesn't have to be the same size. I mean, it's larger, probably larger in respect to the old center.
Yeah.
So I guess the next
Because a
question.
lot of those rooms from the old center, a lot of them were small.
Yeah, it has to be, at least what it was or more.
And it definitely, obviously, is gonna be more, it's 36,000 square feet versus 18, but I guess, so have you guys already sent it out for contract?
No.
For building?
No, it has not. We're waiting to get there's a few permits that the architectural firm are waiting on before they can send it out to bid.
Okay.
But we're very close to going out to bid, but we can't do it until we get the remaining permits, which are gotten from outside organizations.
It's not local city.
The city has already provided the permits for the city, but there's other permits outside of that, like stormwater, things like that, that the city does not do.
Got it.
So that's what we're waiting on, are those last permits.
So what we're talking about now, that's 80%.
Or is
It's
that
more, yeah, that like the last little bit before we can send it out are those permits that we're waiting on.
So is that would be considered the 20% in the minutes that we're waiting on?
Yeah. And at this point, it may not even be 20%.
Oh, well, this is the 20, you're saying,
This was when we had that
right, so
meeting.
I would imagine that this would be completed at this point, right?
Right, other than the last permit we're waiting for.
Okay.
I gotta ask another question. The 80%, well, you're gonna send us some paperwork on this, because I'd like to know what are some of the things in that 80% that are finalized
Okay,
when we come back to us.
yeah.
And the 20% is some of the stuff that gotta be done. There might be something done in there, but I'd like to know what's gonna be added to that too.
Okay.
Listed at the 20%.
I know that everything that could be done on the architectural firm's end has been completed. They're just waiting on final permits.
Guess my question is probably off of what Mr. Woods was talking about, but we didn't ever finish the conversation on what side is the face of the building is going to be on, because I think we voted, agreed unanimously that we didn't want it on Broad Street side, we wanted it to be on Third Avenue.
The main
That was
entrance,
the plan and all, when the start was on.
Yeah, but he was just saying they changed the entrance
He didn't say he changed it.
No,
at one point.
No, he didn't say he changed it.
No.
We were saying that that's what was on the plan there.
the entrance was always going to be on Third Avenue.
yeah. I think the desire was to have it on Third Avenue.
Okay, that's what I want to
And
be
that,
clear.
the main
'cause I-
entrance is on Third Avenue.
Right.
Right, we definitely did not want it on Broad Street. We
Exactly.
agreed Third Avenue from the get-go.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're not allowed to make comment, I'm sorry.
You can ask one of us to ask the question for you.
If you want to go with your motion, that's all I had. I just, some of it, I've voiced my opinion, so I don't know if you guys can, want to approve your minutes.
Okay.
Say that again, Curtis, I didn't hear it at the end.
No, I was saying, that was my question in regards, I don't know if you want to go ahead, there was a motion on the floor to approve the minutes.
There was a motion by Mr. White.
No, with the necessary changes, if you got any changes in there, it should be in there. And if you still have what we have, but if
Well,
we're
some
not
of this is
agreeable
active from
on
what we
what
talked
we
about.
have, then I don't mind rescinding.
Yeah, so some of this is active for what we talked about on the last meeting, it just didn't make sense to me based on going back and doing some homework since that last meeting, while we were still at this place, based on previous information. And I guess, I don't know if this is the time for this, but I would just recommend that, and I heard you say this, that you were in the processes, I just think that we need to meet a little bit more regularly and be a little bit more, a part of the process of what's taking place moving forward. So, I guess that's the solution for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can always, if y'all want to table these minutes until the next meeting, we can do that.
I like the table.
And if you have recommendations to make on the changes, you're more than welcome to send those via email to us, and we can update the minutes and send them back out.
I second it on the table, if you want to table. I don't mind. We just need to get it all in order. See, I read the minutes, but I didn't see it like Mr. Curtis did. Stuff I hadn't seen or stuff I had forgotten. You know, so I understand what you're saying now. We don't want that to happen.
Okay, well, we'll move forward. We'll table the minutes until the next meeting for approval, but we'll be sending out an updated version once we're provided with any updates. All right.
We wouldn't like to get left too far behind. That's the reason we should be meeting like this. We don't want to be left so too far behind. Like now, some of us don't really understand all that we have missed. Mr. Curtis, he kept records of all of that.
Okay.
My records are another book.
Oh, we can definitely, if you want me to bring more in-depth information on the design plans and stuff next time, more than what I have, I'll be glad to provide what I have.
Yeah.
Okay, so, let's talk about the update on design and development. As I said a couple of times, we're waiting on a few more permits that the architectural firm is got to get before they can send it out to bid. I talked to our finance person today who handles bids, and she told me she talked to them last week, and they said that they're waiting on those last permits before we can go out to bid. So hopefully we'll hear something from them this week. It's the same design plan that the board gave direction to move forward with. It's just once we get to see the next plans, they'll actually have every single door and electrical outlet and restroom, everything very detailed, will be laid out on those.
So I would just ask that if you could send out, as I mentioned, the document that you have and the design the design that they've currently provided you guys.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. All right, anybody have any other questions about the design and development?
So once the rest of the permits come in, and I'm assuming those are like the camera permits and.
Well, not CAMA, but there's some stormwater permits they have to get, numerous building permits. There's a variety of permits that have to be obtained from different groups.
So the designer is responsible for getting those.
Yes, sir.
But who does those permits come from? Do they come from the city, the state, or?
There are some from the city, there are some from the state. It's a variety from different state organizations. Yes, sir.
Okay, then once that's done, all that's put in a package and goes out to a contract bid.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Now, once the city start bidding out the contract, how would minority businesses bid on certain parts of the contract? Say if I'm an electrician and I want to do the electrical work, or put a bid in to do the electrical work.
When they send out the bid, it'll be on the city website, and in that whole packet, it's a large packet, and it gives instructions and information on how to submit your proposals for the bid. It also, in that document, will make sure it goes to minority groups in any type of construction so that they're able to obtain the bid.
But just to be clear on your question, that is going to go to a GC. It's not going to go a person that just has an electrical licensed electrician is probably not going to be able to do that. They're going to have to be connected to a general contractor.
I'm not sure about that.
That's 100%. They're not going to. So I mean, this is a whole different. Yeah, they're not. Minorities are going to have a chance to bid on it, but it's going to be a minority general contractor. It's not going to be a minority licensed plumber or a minority electrician.
Normally, contractor bring their own people in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she does, but I'm just saying that's just yeah. Like
That wasn't my understanding of it. I thought my understanding of it, okay, so the GC, I'm the GC, and so much of the business had to be bidded on or given to minority businesses. I thought the way when we started is the process, that was one of the biggest things that we asked about. Okay, so I understand the general contractor. I get that part. But I thought the GC would bid it out to Mr. Pender, who is a licensed plumber or licensed electrician or dump truck guy or whatever. But if I have my own as a general contractor, then I don't have to bid that work out.
That's exactly right. That actually what you're asking now, that's exactly what happened to Stanley White. We made the same call to get minorities in and all that. They promised that they were going to use minority contractors, but they didn't. They brought their own people in, and that's what happened to Stanley White. Mostly general contractors, whether it's residential or commercial, they already have guys that they work with. And that's who they gonna bring in. Point blank.
I don't know if you can answer that question, but I guess when you guys put it out for bid, are we able to meet the general contractor?
I believe so, but let me get clarification from the lady who handles the bids for the city. And I can send y'all some updated information, and if we want her to come to our next meeting and give a synopsis of what it looks like, which by then it'll probably already be gone out to bid. But I can send y'all the process of how it works by
I mean,
city
you just
policy.
put another point to it, but I guess,
Can the general contractor be required to, bid some of that out to minorities, or what? Can they be required to do that when
Well,
they're accepting the bids or whatever?
Well, whatever is in the contract that he signs, whoever gets the bid is awarded the bid would be what he has to follow, I would assume.
But, I'm saying, could that be included in that?
That's something we'll have to ask the,
I actually thought that was part of federal government
requirement.
But we do using federal dollars to build a building.
Yeah,
I
feel
always
like-
thought that was federal,
yeah.
but because one of the biggest things we always talked about was having minority businesses having a hand in building this building.
Yeah.
That has been one of our number one priorities of this board.
Yeah, well, let me get confirmation on how that process will work when it goes out for bid, and I will follow up with you guys.
Okay. Because if we hire a general contractor that's gonna bring in his own people, then, we back where, but my understanding of federal dollars was a portion, at least 25% of that contract has to be minority businesses.
I think that was one of my requests when we started off that. I
Oh,
said,
that was, yes, that has been one of our biggest requests on this board. I remember that, because I got a buddy that's got an electrical business, and I've been on him about making sure he keeps his stuff up to date, so he can at least place a bid.
Yeah, we need to get clarification on how it works after it's awarded to a general contract.
Okay. Okay, moving on, what's next?
Okay, any other questions?
what's going on with Henderson Park?
We are waiting until we have time to move to that project. We're currently working on Pleasant Hill Community Center, wrapping it up. So once we finish that, we'll be moving towards these next projects, Henderson Park being one of them.
Let me ask the board this, because maybe I misunderstood. The basketball court that was gonna be at Henderson Park, did anybody else get the idea that it was gonna be one big court with two small courts side by side? Or was it gonna be one big court going this way, like a regular basketball? Did anybody else, how did,
They use the same footprint on the old building.
I know that's what they did, but what did we talk about? Did we talk about having it like this, with two basketball courts going like this? Or did we talk about using the same footprint that was already there?
Well, as I remember, we were talking about using the same footprint with lights and maybe putting some more stuff on the outside.
Okay, because I had a misunderstanding.
Wasn't it, lights still supposed to go up out there in bleachers?
Mm-hmm, that's part of the plan, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, what Reggie said was true, but what I recommended, and they never gotten back to me, what I recommended, the side that they were saying put a shuffleboard on, I was saying make a smaller court, because you got one whole court, that's sitting where the gym were. But if you're facing Chapman Street, on the right of it, used to be where the classrooms, the mudroom and everything at, you still could put a smaller court on that side, because when that full court is taken up, you might have the same people playing, the same people over and over. So you got other people just standing waiting for hours to try to get on that court. And the other thing I recommend or I asked, but I never got any clarity on it. I don't like the backboards that you put up there. It just look, for what you're doing and what you're saying you're doing for the community, for the size of New Bern, it looks bad. When I go to Maysville, it's a smaller town, and the park that they have is upgraded, and the backboards are professional, glass, whatever, and just to see them little cheap rims that we've been having for year after year, I think they need to come down, the backboards need to come down and put some real backboards up there. And that's what I said at the very beginning, even before they did the project.
Okay.
I think we deserve more for the size of the city that we had. That's what I'm saying.
So the plan that I have, I'm looking at, it says that it's obviously 14 acres in size, that there's new restrooms, shelters, baseball field, softball field, playground for 2 to 12-year-olds, multi-purpose football, soccer field, 2 lighted basketball courts, mini amphitheater area with raised stage, splash pad water featuring 1.5-mile walking trails, exercise stations, and dedicated entrance parking, veteran garden, and additional landscape. Is that still the plan?
I don't know about spray park. I have not been,
I know the problem with the spray park out there.
it's too wet.
At that, it's too wet, and the ground is, well, the reason we want us on George Street now, because of that same problem we had out there. Chris, I know you're too young, but with the, it used to be a dump site, and it kept, we had the ground tested, did test drill, and it just wouldn't work there, because that's where it originally supposed to went. But I'm hoping that this ground is about to stop selling. It's been over 30 years, and hopefully it'll stop it now. We can basically do some more things out there, but that was one of the main reasons that the splash pad is down on George Street.
So these other items, are those still in the plan?
All of those are in the plan other than the splash area.
And the Veterans Park, because they moved.
Yeah, they moved to a different location.
Now the old, we're gonna demolish the old courts over there in the corner, am I right? Because if you notice, the 2 that's out there now beside the other one, because over the years they have sank some too, if you notice. But if you decide to put some, those goals and stuff will still be usable somewhere else out there. I mean, just that the area over there is, when it's a hard rain, it's underwater from the sinking over there.
But if you go off of what Mr. Stewart was talking about, 2 lighted courts, where would you put 2 lighted courts at?
So you're saying they already did the courts, right?
We did one court.
That's one court. I haven't been out there.
And then there's the old court that's still there.
But
But
that's the
he's
one
talking about
we're
it goes
just talking about.
underwater.
Right, one of them is definitely done something.
Reggie, I deal with construction. That court never sank, but the city of New Bern did. They did a fall on that thing so the water could drain into that ditch. That's what they did. The court never sank.
Well, one of them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They tilted it. They
It's-
tilted it. They did a fall, what they call a fall. They did a fall, so when the water comes from the shelter area back down towards the trail, it goes into the canal. That's what that was. It never sank. I still go out there and play. The court had never sank. They designed it that way. Actually, both of those courts was under the ground itself. It never was above the ground. Even when Chandler was out there with his league, when he first came in, it never was over the ground itself. They did it just like they do sidewalks. The sidewalks are cut below the earth.
Well, I'm not trying to dispute.
So
it,
they in other words,
when they were originally done out there, we did have a problem with drainage, and there always been a problem with drainage, but that one court at the front, we had to come out, it wasn't, the water wasn't sent off in that area. That end of the court, that's why we stopped doing the outside tournaments and stuff out there, because one end was lower than the other. It wasn't because of something they did, it was because over the years, that end had just sank in.
So my request to Terry would be, could you just send something, an update, to us on when the construction for Henderson Park is gonna begin back? And kind of like a time, like the projected timeline, and just confirming that based on the plan that you guys have provided, that all those things are still happening except for the splash pad and the Veterans Garden.
Okay.
I thought we added an additional shelter out there.
We are adding it's a 30 by 60. We actually have that in stock, and that's gonna be one of the next things we install when we get back out there.
So has FEMA approved the bathrooms and so all that's done?
We just got to get to the point that we can actually do the work.
Do the work.
No, so is it fair just to request a timeline?
I'll do my best, to give you a timeline. I can't tell you that it's gonna stick to that,
No, I can appreciate just to have
because y'all know that we do all this work in-house.
Yeah.
And I have one person that does the work with 2 laborers, so, he can only get so much done, and sometimes with supplies, getting them in, that affects our timeline, but,
Well, this will be your first year being able to do your budget, right?
correct.
So that means you probably need to be asking for some more help.
That's what it sounded to me like. You need to hire some folk. I don't know.
Now, this structure is still gonna be on the same footprint as the, structure down at the farmer's market?
Do what? No,
The structure that they're gonna be putting out in, Henderson Park, is it gonna be an open air?
yes, it's gonna be
Structure.
an open air shelter.
So is it gonna be, is that similar to the big one that they already have out there now?
Yeah, it's gonna be bigger, but
So
it
where's
won't
it-
be the exact same one, cause it's more of a shelter kit versus that one that was just built, from the ground up with construction. This one will be too, but we order these, structures that are engineered.
Or the prefab? So are they, do you know the location? in the park?
Yes.
Where's the placement?
It is, right beside where it's where the other gravel parking lot was.
So almost behind the building? Or
Yes.
the other, yeah, okay. Gotcha. That's a little higher ground anyways.
And last question on that, when do you, understanding that you're gonna give us a prospective timeline, when are you thinking that the construction will start back out there?
At Henderson Park.
Yes.
I'm hoping as soon as they complete the Pleasant Hill Community Center, we're 2 to 3 months, 2 maybe.
So you're saying this project probably won't go on the way to probably second quarter?
Yes.
So, is the city doing that out there in Pleasant Hill? Are they contracting?
Yes, sir. No, we're doing it in-house.
Okay, because I know the one at Stanley White, they subcontracted that. Because I know Jimmy Dillon did order that, or all of it, imported and everything, so.
That
I
was-
didn't know if you wanted to speed it up for time, if you want to sub it out, contract it out, instead of the city having to wait on the city workers. You know what I'm saying? Because the winter's not gonna be here too long, so the summer is coming up. So if you have in your budget to contract it out, let a contractor come in and go ahead and get it up.
Okay. Thank you for that recommendation.
And then what is your projection on having these permits so that it is now going out for bid for the building of Stanley?
I'll have to get that from the architecture.
Well, they have to have given you something at this point, because it's been some time, so they're waiting on permits. Can you give us specifics on the permits that you're waiting for?
I can, but I don't have that right in front of me right now, but I can email you that.
Okay, And then, but are you saying like that's sometime early February? Are you saying that's the end of the quarter? Are you thinking that this is
It should be within the next few weeks, as far as I've been told.
that they'll put it out for bid?
Yes.
Can we have CP&L meet with us, our next meeting, to update us on everything that they've done and where they are?
I can certainly ask, yes, sir.
That way we won't beat you up as bad, we can beat somebody else up.
Well, and I think it's a little bit easier for them to answer some of these
Right.
questions
That-
that you're
that's why I
asking,
asked
because
that.
they're the ones actually doing the
Right, that's
work.
why I asked asked for that.
Okay.
My main concern right now, and is that we're going into year 4 without a rec center in that area, and it looks like it's going to be 2 more years before we even break ground. And you're talking about a generation of our children who have not had a facility for them. And it's like, and I'm not blaming anybody. However, it seems to me that the city doesn't care. That's just my opinion, because it seems like we're treading water. We're talking about the same things over and over and over again, and it's starting to be redundant about some things. I truly believe if this was in another area, we wouldn't have this problem. We'd have broke ground by now. The Tisdale house is still there. I mean, is it being moved? What's going on with that? I heard that it's already been purchased. The city then gave up some land somewhere. So why the house hasn't been moved?
I can't tell you about that, but I do know there has been a date set that it has to be moved by.
What's that date again? Because I didn't read that.
Oh, it's February something, but I can't remember.
February.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
it's within the first 2 weeks of February, I believe.
I mean,
So if they don't meet that deadline, then what? I just threw it out there.
Yeah.
And the other thing, with the house, how about the area with the restaurant? What have become of that?
That's part of this property that, where
So
does
they had a
center-
public meeting on that, so what happened during that public meeting?
I would have to check with developmental services.
Can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I missed what you said, Elijah.
The property
The-
where the
the
Gent
restaurant.
Sandwich Shop used to be,
Uh-huh.
there was a public hearing notice for that. I'll have to get that for you.
I just want to know the results of the public meeting.
yeah, so I just want to make sure we're on the right, well, for me, that my energy is being put right in the right place. So for me, obviously, we can't, I don't want to keep complaining about certain things that we can't control at this point, but I guess I do want to make sure that now that we have a concept, that there's a building, there's drawings, there's a plan, there's a projected date that you're going to put this out for bid, that we are able to, as it states now and moving forward, focus our energy on that our voice is being heard in this design, this development, this programming, and that we're included in those conversations moving forward. I mean, I think there's so many factors of why we're where we're at now, from petitions to all types of stuff that's happened over the last couple of years. Yes, it's taken a long time, but that's been I wouldn't say it's just been the way that this process has went because of people not understanding or information not being given from the city of what things and how things should occur, to people misunderstanding. But at this point, we gotta put our energy on what we can control and make sure that you guys include us at the table for those things.
Yeah, well, going forward, other than getting the building construction, the biggest role for us is going to be how we're going to program that facility. And that's where I need a lot of input on what's needed in the community, what's wanted in the community as far as recreation programming, because that'll tell me what direction I need to go in.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you have staffing, available for Stanley White?
I do. Because we had to move the staff that was there, you know, we had to move them out, so we spread them out between the recreation center and an office area that we have at the aquatic center. So we've kind of spread staff out. They're working out of the recreation center, the mega center, they're working out of there. So the staff will be spread back out to Stanley White like they were previously.
But you had some retirements though in the rec department. Gus retired, he was at Stanley White. That was all. Well, Torrance is close to retirement. He was at Stanley White.
We're working on filling the recreation
And you were already
position.
short already over there to start with. I mean, you were short at Stanley White to begin with, so that's why I asked that question, because I know.
I'd like to say a couple of things, and I'll try not to say no more. It's dealing with that Tisdale house. I mean, I see that as a blockage. Now, when they first came up with it, I thought, growing up around it, I thought it would be like any other place. If it's in the way, you allow somebody to buy it, or now they're supposed to be giving it to somebody. And if you don't move it at a certain time, I feel like the city needs to go ahead and do something. I mean, history doesn't mean anything if it's somebody else's history. It's a whole lot of historic houses been torn down. That place doesn't mean no more to me than the place that they tore down. See, that's like putting a person in front of you to block you so somebody can run by you. That building stand right there. I don't care what we do, it's gonna come back to that building. Now, what if the person that's supposed to have the building or want it, change their mind?
Well, I don't
You
know.
know, that's stalling taxes. Me, I say, hey, do what you gotta do. It's a nice house, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, I don't know, Mr. White, you've been reading and paying attention to the meetings at redevelopment and some other stuff. At this point, they're past that. They essentially, what it sounds like to me is they had offered a house for somebody to take it. If you did your due diligence, you would have recognized that it was quite a bit to move that house. Nobody really wanted to do that. They strategically have figured out a way between the Historical Society and a lot here in the city to move the house now. So because and again, I'm not politically correct, because they were able to strategically figure out a way to do it, they got a date, they're gonna move the house. So that's done now. The house is gonna be moved, they're not gonna not move the house. It's going right over there by the development services, it's a lot back there, read it a couple weeks ago. So even if that was an issue before, it's not the issue now, but hopefully what will happen is once they move this house, maybe you will have a date strategically to be able to say this bid is going out to folks, or to a contractor, and you guys can, I would imagine by the end of February, I would hope at the end of this quarter, you guys plan on having somebody that is gonna build the gym back.
Yeah, because when the bid goes out, it
reason-
can only be out for so many days.
Yeah.
The reason I said something about it, because there've been 2 historic houses, and one I have been trying, 2 of them I have tried to get torn down for years, even before I even got on the board, trying to get it torn down. And then they finally came along and tore it down. The other one stayed up, and as it started falling, and I was still pushing for it torn down, put light posts up to hold it up, and it still stayed there. Now they finally tore it down. They torn it down a few years ago. This here is the same tactics to me, or the same move. The people that want the house probably really want the house, but moving it probably be the problem. I've seen them move a house from where Taco Bell's is, big 2-story house. It's downtown now. Okay, they had to cut it in half. And cut parts that they could use to bring it down the Broad Street, to take it down and put around it by the courthouse. You know, as a little kid, I've seen a lot, but when it comes to certain houses, it don't make no difference how long it's been there. It's been there 1919, they tear it down. You know, so I just say you need to be prepared for that that block, because if I got a runner running the ball and you get him the first time, I'm gonna see that you got him the first time, so the next time I'll make sure that a man take him out. And so he can go on down the court. You know, so that's stuff that the game they play, man. I see it. I'll tell them like it is.
So just to make sure I'm clear on the request that I'm asking from you is you're gonna send us over the current plans that you guys have. You will potentially be able to meet the contractor that you guys pick. You're gonna have CP and L potentially come to our next meeting. And then you'll give us a timeline on the Henderson Park. And the question in regards to minority businesses will pretty much be a general contractor question or CP&L question. But I just want to make sure, because I know we've talked about quite a bit, but the things that we can control moving forward, those are kind of my 5 or 6 questions. I want to make sure that we get answers.
Okay, I got it down. Y'all ready to move forward on next item? I know last meeting we talked about the history wall, and Mr. Morgan asked that anybody bring back any recommendations on slogans for the history wall from community members. Does anybody have anything to add as far as the slogans or anything on the history wall?
So I'm not clear. Are you saying there's just going to be a wall for history, or are you saying this is throughout the facility itself, or are you saying there's going to be a designated area that's for the history of Stanley White Recreation?
It's going to be a designated wall.
Designated wall. How big is that wall?
Oh, gosh. It's pretty good size. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head.
So from us, are you looking for, I know that Robbie did ask us to come out with 3 or 4 different ideas. I failed that challenge. But are we giving you some visuals? Are we giving you wording? What are we giving you that you're going to take? Are you going to take this information and kind of put together a concept, or what does that look like?
I will take that information and provide it to the design team for that.
Is that CP&L?
And they will be responsible for coming up with plans for that.
And so do you need hard items from us? Do you need wording? Do you need a Google Doc? What do you need from us in order to take that back?
You can send me emails with recommendations. You can send me pictures if you want to, via email or whatever, you know. If there's certain slogans or things you feel like should be included on that wall, just basically what you feel like the Stanley White Recreation Center, the history of it.
If I may, please, what I've done is I've gone out to some of the people in the community, spoke with Miss Cleo White, Miss Pam White. Also, I've spoken with the Midget family, Scobie Midget, Mr. Book, some of those that may have played for the New Bern Giants, which was on one of the baseball teams here that Mr. Stanley White was a member of. Also, Mr. Pender and I spoke last about some of the pictures from some of the graduating classes from the Cedar Street, which transformed over into Stanley White, because that was the kindergarten that a lot of us graduated from. Also, along with Miss Pearlie Mae Martin, Miss Goldie, some of those that were instrumental in running more than just a recreation center, but running a safe haven, along with some of the athletes that have gone and taken their skills to the next level, and some of them even in the professional ranks that came through that center. You know, what we're looking for and asking for are hard copies of pictures that we can somehow transform onto that wall so that we can have a pictorial history, but also we needed a mantra or needed a slogan, and that was where I had kind of also asked a few people, and these were just some of the responses that I got. One was remembering the past, living in the present, focusing on the future. Then, of course, somebody wanted to change it and said, change it to believing in the future or trusting in the future. Another one that I received was from the roots to the trunk to the branches and the leaves, we continue to grow. One of the other ones, the best way, and this, I think I did look this one up because I knew I had heard it. This actually came from Abraham Lincoln. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And I knew I had heard that one before. Another one that I received, we educate, we live, we grow. And one of the final ones that I received was, we learn from the past, we protect our present, and we create our future. So those were just some of the things that I put out there, and I'm not going to tell you which ones were actually mine, but I did talk with some people in the community, and that's what I received. But we're looking for hard copy history. I do see a couple of gentlemen here tonight, and thank you all for coming. I know you have some history here in that area, coming through that rec center, both of you. I know that your father may have had all kinds of different pictures. Mr. Monroe, I know that Billy, I'm gonna call you Billy. Billy, I know that you played with a lot of those guys coming up and definitely took your skills to the next level and beyond. And we're looking for some of those pictures of when you were young, when you were growing up, before you went and made your place down at Fayetteville State and made all of us proud. Me as a little boy coming, watching you play, just meant a lot to me. And those are some of the things that I grasped and that I hold on to. New Bern Giants playing in Caper Park, which was not a park, it was an actual stadium. That's right. That was a stadium that we had there, and it just happened to be the stadium that Mr. Stanley White took his last breath in, out there trying to fix lights for us. You know, so these are some of the things that we definitely need to hold on to, grasp, cling to, and try to just get as much history as we can, get as much history as you can think about. And some of those things, I had made a post a couple of years ago while Stanley White was still standing, and people are still commenting on it, and today I had about 5 different comments come on it, and I did tag Mrs. Warren in it, and just so that she could kind of read some of the comments and feel some of the stories that people shared in their coming up, in their experiences, whether it had been with Mr. Pender being at the helm, whether it had been with Book or Mr. Spencer being at the helm, or just when they won a national title, they won a state title coming through Stanley White, and Stanley White just breezed through the state, you know, just winning games, and it came out of that recreation center. You know, so we just ask that you reach out to those that you know, those that you have been in contact with, and get us some of that history. I'm sorry, I was real long. But yeah, if you will, please. I'm sorry.
You know, there's one problem with all that, Robbie, and that was very good information that you just said. But I just think that, so this doesn't get lost, because there's a couple of things. I would just say that I'm willing to, I don't have nearly the knowledge of the history just based on age that you have, and obviously Reggie and some other folks that we're sitting up here with. But that's something that we probably need to get together with outside of this and put on paper to give to her, because all of that right there, I bet you gets lost somewhere. I mean, there's no way to remember all that. So I would just say I'm willing to maybe next week for us to get together with this, to start that conversation and start getting her some of that information, the pictures that we may have or people may have. I'm willing to help orchestrate that, but I think, you know, we're just gonna have to get together for people to have the information. And clearly, you have a lot of it.
I can most certainly agree with you, Mr. Stewart, and we are living in the digital age. So if you'll just look straight ahead at those cameras and just know that we are being recorded, all right? You may always refer back. Thank you.
Yeah, but point just taken. I'm just
No,
saying,
seriously,
let's
but
get-
thank you, though.
no,
What
let's
you
get on
made-
paper, because it was good information, and we need to get on paper to get to her so that she can begin to try to.
I agree, absolutely.
Catalog
put
it.
that together, yeah.
And that is something that I would be more than happy to share some of the folks that I did speak with. And that is a passion of mine, the history and just knowing. But I will definitely write it down. And I do want this committee to be the designers of that wall. There's nobody more qualified for anybody to design that wall other than us. And when I mean us, it could be 30 of us, it could be 3,000 of us that are all qualified to add something to that wall, because there have been thousands, tens of thousands of us that have come through there. And I'm not just talking about New Bern citizens. I'm talking about cousins that have come down from New York, come down for the summer, and they spent their summers at Stanley White. So yeah, I would be more than happy to make sure that I write it down, that I document it, and that we start working on the hard copies. But I do want to make sure that we are the designers of that wall. And when I say we, anybody who had anything to add or that learned anything from being in that center. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. And thank you, Ms. Warren.
Can you email me those slogans you just read off so I can go ahead and start having a file of those?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, and the next time I ask my board to, I challenge you to bring me back something, bring it back.
Okay. I want to move on to Recreation Center services and programming recommendations. So I know you, Mr. Wood, you spoke about staffing. You know, I want y'all to bring me back some recommendations of what you want to see there. And if I was to develop a survey that you could send out to people in the community on the type of programming and recreation services they would like to see and programs they would like us to offer, I would appreciate that. If you guys could help me get that out.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have right now any ideas or any recommendations they want to bring up regarding programming?
I think one of the biggest things I think we need to bring back is that after-school program. I mean, it helps a lot of kids, not only educationally, but to keep them motivated. It turned out, and it's still going on somewhere. I know they're still doing it at West New Bern, but that's one thing that definitely need to go back in, and with some maybe some added stuff, computers and stuff like that. We were planning on before then, but we got the money for that program through a grant, and all the staff, and they did it right. All the staff, including me, had to get their child care credentials in order for the program to be in it. And we wasn't trying to make money off that program.
Yeah.
We charged something like, what, $10? I think we started off about $10 a week for that. Matter of fact, I still got my shirts from that. I just went and could fit them. But it was a joy that something that really came on that was really great, and besides the sports, and it helped out a lot of kids, and they look forward to it.
Yeah.
I would just offer that, and again, I think this is one of those things that we're going to need to put in writing to you, and I heard you say bring it back. But there's a couple of different challenges you're going to face, and I think the biggest one is, I can remember, you know, when Book and other people were there, you know, obviously our community funds of issue. So understanding that this is a business, I think you're going to be challenged with making sure that there's creative ways that people can still participate that may not have funds to be able to do things.
That's a great point.
There's a majority of our city is funded by grants. It's not, people don't get paid by tax dollars. These people getting, our city is funded by grants. So people know how to write grants here. We got to make sure that the programs that are there, people can afford them and people can participate. The football program there, Pop Warner, I know it's not Pop Warner anymore. It's a different league. Pickett and other folks have been involved with it, and Mr. Reggie for years. I think the football program is important back over in that community. There used to be my mother used to go there and they used to do ceramic seminars. I'm sure she did ceramics. There was a ceramic class that was there for years. I mean, since I can remember. And then
They had the senior citizen program there.
senior citizens program, but more importantly, it's just whatever programs are there, there's gonna have to be a culture of people that understand that community and the community over there that will work with the kids to be able to participate. It can't be somebody that's not connected to the community there, that's working the front desk, that's running kids out of there. And so as long as you're here, I challenge you to build that culture when you start that, because that's how it was successful before, by having people that can adapt and relate and that the kids see on an ongoing basis versus somebody that cannot relate to them at all.
You're right. Curtis is right. And one thing Curtis said that really peeved me off during the time, it got to the point that the city was more interested in money, and really they priced all the kids out of the programs. I remember we didn't never have a problem getting kids to participate, but I don't want to bring up names, but things happen, and they basically, priced the kids out of the program. I mean, coming from that area, you got 2 or 3 kids in your family, you want to sign up for football, they can't afford $75 or $100 a kid. We never turned anybody back. If they didn't have it, we made a way to find out, make sure they got it. And that's what I want to get back to. It's recreation is for everybody. And
That's
I hate
exactly
seeing
right.
a kid out watching that can't play because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I had to sit on my way out. That was really, and our program has dropped off.
I will interrupt and just say this, that those New Bern High State Championships that came through New Bern High started at Stanley White. They started at Stanley White because they had those young guys out there playing together as a unit, and they knew each other, and that's where those state championship teams came from. They originated from that league out at Stanley White.
Remember when I was asking about the card, that's why I said that early on.
Yeah.
Because of what Reggie and Curtis was talking about. We don't want to see any child that lives in that neighborhood not being able to use the facility because they don't have that little scan card, or they lost that little scan card.
Yeah. I actually, last week, I had spoke with Ginger about trying to do some research on options and how we can work that out, and we've got to figure out a way, because having a guardian sign them up for it, that's part, we have to have that because of the liability. But we were trying to come up with creative ways that we can do like a sign up where we go out and like help the kids be able to get signed up if they have a guardian that can sign off on it. So we're working on creative ways to try and do that.
Have you thought about getting with the school system and seeing if you can partner with them to get, especially in that area, J.T. Barber, Trent Park Elementary, Oaks Road, they have what's called, I want to say it's either peach or pie, where it's peach, they send information out to the parents. So maybe if we get with Craven County Schools and see if we can partner with them on, and I'm willing to volunteer and help. I'm a HUGS volunteer to where we just take once a quarter, we go to the elementary schools and we just sign the kids up with their parents there.
Okay.
I have some time, I'm willing to volunteer to do that.
Yeah, any recommendations you have like that you think we can get to those children to be able to get on cards, that would be great.
Okay.
When you say hidden card, what are you referring to?
We have these rec cards where they get put in our system, and whenever they come in, they scan that card. So we know, they've been in the center, and it's the way to track
So a kid doesn't have to come
it.
with their parent necessarily?
I think there's a certain age they can come alone, but under that age, they have to be with a parent.
What's the age that they can come along?
Oh, gracious, if you hadn't asked me, I want to say it's around 12.
After 12 and over, they can come along. So again, so I think we have a couple of different things that we're gonna be challenged with over the next couple of months is, obviously the contract, the design, the development, the programming is a big one, and then Henderson Park. Again, Carrie, and again, if you wanna, if I don't know how to say this other than to say it, like if you want to really, win the community over, it's gonna be this programming, because the problem has really been, some of these other things are out of our control, but the programming, the pubbing of the programming, your staff morale is, oh my gosh. I mean, people gotta be happy to work for you. They gotta like what they're doing. You gotta find people that want to do what it is that they're doing. And there have been people in the past that will go out of their way to go to a kid's house to go see the mom to get the document signed, because the mama is not gonna come up there and do it. I mean, you just gotta understand what's taking place in our community to really be efficient and effective. And again, it ain't your job to hold nobody's hand. I get the business end of it, but again, you gotta understand, and folks gotta understand where the community center's at, the people that's around it, and the resources that they got to be able to do it. And ultimately, you're gonna have to have programs where it don't cost kids that can't afford it.
I
That's
agree.
just the bottom line to it.
Yeah, there are going to need to be programs that are going to be geared toward, we live in a multi-generational community. We have a lot of grandparents that are actually raising grandkids, and a lot of the parents are absent. So it's multi-generational, because you may have some grandchildren living in the same house with a whole bunch of aunts and uncles, and one matriarch. And for them to be in charge, to be able to come and sign their child up or sign their grandchild or their niece or their nephew up, then you start getting into the stipulations of where you don't have legal custody of the child, but the uncle and aunt are living there in the house, the grandmother can't come. So there are going to be some different roadblocks. And of course, you're talking about passing out the cards, the ID cards. I'm in favor of retinal scanning, to be honest with you. I think Mr. Curtis Stewart could probably help us with Millennium Sports. Kids come up, you do the retinal scan, they never have to come and give you a card. That's in a perfect world.
Yeah, because actually, at once upon a time, if you lived in the city limits, you didn't have any assessments added to the kids or to the adults. But all of a sudden, somebody want to double dip. Because if, in my mind, if I'm paying taxes, I already paid my fee for any facility in the city of New Bern. If I'm paying my taxes, that's what's taking care of that facility. That's what's paying the workers' fee, salary. So when you come back and charge a child anywhere from $10 to $25 a week, that's a bit of, and you got 2 or 3 children, that's a lot of money. And that's just the recreation, but not even counting, the public school. They got fees. You play football, you play basketball, you got to buy your gear, you got to buy your food, so we come up with better ways to do it.
I feel it's double jeopardy. I always complain about that. A certain amount of city money supposed to go towards recreation. They had it when I was small, like y'all talking now. I never would have been able to play. Okay, never would have been able to play. But Stanley White allowed all of us to come. He would come around and pick people up in the bus, or he would have a big field that we would all meet in, and he would write your name down if you didn't get to the gym. And then he would you would be signed up, and then he would distribute your name out to a coach in certain areas that you lived in, and that's how we normally played. And then we take the paperwork home, and get your parents to sign it. And that was it. Some of our parents were able to make it to a game, and some were not. Our game was played on Wednesdays, and mostly Wednesdays, it might have been Tuesdays and Thursdays. But all the little kids, everybody was out there, that's what you look forward to, okay? And I argued about that years ago and still argue about it. That's called, to me, that's double jeopardy. This city here used to have a chart. The chart had the mayor, the board of aldermen, and on the back then when Kimball and all the people there, some of y'all remember them. And under their names, on one side would be the clerk, and on the other side would be a box, and it said recreation. Your recreation was the number 2 or number 3 things in this city. And I talk about it all the time, and that's where the money was going at to take care of the kids. There wasn't no complaint. Only people did something then back there, I think, with the Babe Ruth League. They started the Babe Ruth League in the 60s, and they started that. And then those kids, they didn't really pay. What can I say? Businesses punished them with money or whatever, so they could play. That's how they played. Sponsor, yeah.
And they were not paying rent to use that field to West New Bern or to the city. And that I know for a fact.
They've been pushing for that for 30 years.
Who makes a decision on programming and the fees behind the program?
Those are all free for the kids.
There's a fee schedule that's set by the city that we kind of go by for the programs.
Based on all programs?
Yeah.
So the city, who in the city sets the fees for programs?
The department or the director for Parks and Recreation would recommend the fees, and then the board has to approve or deny.
Now we're talking. So what I'm asking, and I think that when we put this together, there should be, in my opinion, some type of, because essentially you're the person that makes the recommendation now. So there has to be some type of programming or some type of median house income or some type of financial scale to be able to say, hey, if this is under this amount in this household, we're not going to charge these people for the programs that we're offering. If it's over this amount, because then you have a standard. I mean, and I really think that you should consider that. I believe back in the day I know at the YMCA there used to be something where you could go if someone didn't make over a certain amount of money or your parents didn't, you were able to basically get a scholarship to go to the YMCA. So I just hope that that's something that you can consider putting in place.
Yeah, I'm actually have been looking at doing a scholarship program for sports.
And I can understand, like with football, I can understand the cost because, you had to pay insurance, city paid insurance for each one of the teams we had, plus they had to pay for the officials, which when we played home, and the insurance wasn't cheap.
Yeah, and now the equipment has to be recertified every so many years.
Every 5 years or so.
Well, there's definitely some expenses.
If you get into a league, you're going to pay the insurance. If you're still like Kingston or like we started off, the city handled it. We had to we were asked to pay $2.65 there each kid, okay? And you brought that money in, you just paid that money. That was supposed to be for your insurance, but the city itself covered you.
No, during the Part 1, it changed.
See, Part 1 is a different
He's
avenue.
talking about if it's
fee.
in-house.
It's a straight out fee in there.
Insurance.
So when you pay insurance, you get your kids together, like I used to do. I had a set fee, $20. That's all it was. Anybody couldn't pay the $20, I paid it. And then I had some sponsors said, well, Bernard, if you need any help, whatever, I'm kind of hard about begging people for anything. But what I did, I gave sponsors the name or whatever. They say, how many kids you want? For how many kids? And if it was 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever. Every year I paid for some of them kids to go out there, and we turned nobody away. Okay? And that because we was an independent team. We was independent. Even though we were in Part 1, nobody controlled us. Even at Stanley White, when I was coaching at Stanley White didn't have no control over me. Stanley White, the gym itself has no control of the kids that really play there. That Part 1 association that you're under, that's what it is. They have control of you. But you using them they're using your practice area, and you saw the equipment that they wear back. And then we had the old equipment. So when Alan Spencer was there, he was the director, one of the directors there. Alan Spencer called and they called the people at Park Warner called me back. We both on the phone, and we was on the phone. He told Alan Spencer, Park Warner, we're over them. We control them. They're just using your site.
My last question, are the fees tied into your budget?
The user fees, other than the revenue that we, look at, generate.
So fees are tied into your budget?
Yeah, as far as revenue.
We as she's saying, we have a way of raising our own money. We start off buying hamburgers. Parents bring the hamburgers and everything else. But first, we had to get certified to use the old New Bern High Stadium. We had to get certified to do that. And after we got certified to do that, the people came and inspected. When the person came and inspected, didn't have a hot water heater, place leaked and everything. We fixed all that up. After we fixed it up, we just got nothing.
Bernard is referring to when we raised money for the football program. We found out all the money we raised had to go into the general fund.
Yeah.
Which we didn't, of course, we wasn't guaranteed to get any of that money back once it went in the general fund. Yeah. What we decided, and we did, we formed a Boosters Club, got our tax ID number, everything we needed, and we formed our own club. We raised money through. That's how we got the chance to travel all the places we did. We raised, and we had a good group of people that was volunteering and working. We got out and beat the bushes and made sure the kids. We went to Florida, everywhere, Atlanta, and with money that we raised ourselves, we got out and did it hard. And like I said, the city finally did help us in some situation we went, but most of the stuff we did on our own after with our booster club.
Okay. All right, so those are the kinds of things I need to hear about programming. What y'all, definitely about the, the fee and the cost and things like that. And then, of course, the type of programs.
So you want us to kind of put this in writing for you, or I know you took some notes, but.
I took some notes, but you can email me, like if you want to send me ideas about your, what you think the programs need to look like, or if you have information from community members about what the programs need to look like, you can send them to me. I'll start keeping a running sheet of those.
Okay.
And that way, when I, work with my staff on developing programs, we'll know the directions we need to go in.
So does your staff have a say-so in the programs that you guys do?
Yeah,
guys have opinions?
yeah, they help plan them and provide opinions. All right, anybody got anything else?
Yep. I move that we adjourn.
What is our next meeting?
It'll be, it's scheduled to be the third week, because it's opposite of the,
Third week in there.
every month, the third week.
Okay. So you now have, so February moving forward.
So it'll be the 21st of February?
Correct.
The 21st, that's on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we have a second to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Everybody in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, guys.